You know, Kenny, they start off as just customers. They call in on the phone. Sometimes they stop by. Yeah, I mean, we're in Arizona. Not everybody. It's not a big van place. Not everybody comes by, but typically they just start off as just customers. They need something. We got something. Usually it's cold air technology in this case, and that's how I met Brandon. He was living in Miami, still has a place in Miami, and he calls up and we started talking about cold air technology. I don't know, it may have been about a year or two ago, and he kept trying to ask me questions about cold air, and I kept asking him questions about living in Miami and why you would ever want to give that up to live in a van somewhere else besides where he lives, because I know exactly where it's at and it's beautiful. There's a beach there, it's beautiful. I wouldn't go giving that up. Over the last couple years, him and his family, Brandon, Dina, and Asher, has stopped by a few times into the office. We've hung out. They came into the shop, and Brandon's always had this unique ability to excel at whatever he's doing. And his electrical system, when he got done at it, was just a thing of beauty. And he just took his time. He was methodical about reading everything. And when he got done, I was like, hey man, you should do this for other people in the Miami, South Florida area. And so I just started sending him people, but he's just so busy, he doesn't even really have time to do it. He was just doing it to help out the people in his community. When he was coming by, he had a thought about putting a second alternator in. I said, I'm super lazy. Why don't you just use our facility and put it in? Him and the wife and Asher hung out in the shop. They cooked here. He did all the work. We did nothing. Kenny, we did nothing, right? I'm pretty sure he did all the hard work. I probably watched. I know they slept here over maybe a few nights just hanging out, sort of like you would do with family. And that's sort of what they've become. And they were recently in town. They stopped by, and Brandon said, hey, where's Gunner? And if you don't know, Gunner's, well, I can't start crying, Kenny. We can't do that. You know, I don't even like talking about old Gunner. Did you pan down and get the cute puppies sleeping? I need them to be a tax write-off. So if you can put them in the video, it'd be fantastic. Now your food is free. Come on, guys, let's go see what's in the box. I'm stoked about it. Hey, Juan, slow it down. Okay, it's powder coated. Come here. Come sit down. Sit. Lay down. Sit down. You sit down. Stay. Just stay. No. There you go. Why do you act like you've never been on camera before? Just hang out and look pretty. No. Lay down. Okay, you too. Lay down. Sorry about that, Kenny. Let's start this over. All right, guys, my name's Jonathan with Nomadic Cooling. Money well spent. Got to be quite honest with you, Kenny. Roxy's left the show. It's just me and Gunner here. Roxy's gone. Not a hard worker, that dog. You may not know this just by looking at me and Gunner, but we're getting older. And it's getting harder to get in and out of this big old 4x4 since it's all lifted with these big old manly tires. The one thing I am greatly impressed with is the grippy things that they have right here. When you're getting in and out of here, in the snow, in the water, in the sand, you won't appreciate it when you're barefooted. That's gonna suck. But all other times except for barefootedness, you're gonna really appreciate the texture of these tiny little holes that they put on here to make sure that you get in and out of your van safely and securely at all times. Anyways, they sent me the nicest little present in the mail. And it got here the other day, and it happened to coincide at the same time that it says no long. Kenny, I can't read it. It's not no chance, buddy. It's a heart, okay? But sweet thing to do, and it happened to coincide at the exact same time that Kenny is cutting a video for him. So I thought instead of saying thank you in a text message or give him a call, we'd put it at the beginning of this video. So Brandon, to you and your family, thank you very much for this. And Kenny, you better cut that fucking camera before I start crying. Go further in comfort. Something like that. There we go.
maybe the tour, just starting from the front, and then we can work our way back. So stepping in, first thing you notice is this bench here. This is probably the most secure piece of furniture built in the van. On the main part of the chassis in the front, there are some cross members going to the edge of the vehicle. And I used 1/4-inch steel brackets with grade 8 bolts going into each other and then bolts going up. And then this is all built with 80/20 aluminum in here. And for the baby's car seat, just use ratchet straps to hold it down to that. Up here is unfinished, but this is my closet. And then this is some of the electrical. So this is the Victron system. It shows me everything that's going on in the van, battery levels, temperatures. It shows me power in, power out, all of my water levels as well. And this also has a relay system, which can trigger a remote start. So when the batteries, which we'll get to in the back, get too low, the van will automatically start in the middle of the night, or if we're away, charge the batteries up with my 100 amp DC to DC charger to charge those. This is also the control for, which is not plugged in, for my Rixon systems. It's a diesel powered furnace that essentially heats a glycol loop or coolant loop, which then heats some heat exchangers. I have 3 heat exchangers, one in the engine bay, which also ties into my stock radiator, so I can use heat from the radiator. It also ties into 2 other heat exchangers, one for my shower and one for my sink. And that uses less than 1 amp to heat hot air. And another heat exchanger is for hot air. Less than 1 amp to heat the entire van, hot air, hot water, everything. I also have a selector switch in here, which allows me to send all of my solar to either the house batteries in the back or the starter battery with its auxiliary battery in there. Or I can just shut off the solar completely. Moving this way in the van, we have a 200-liter ISO Therm Fridge. It's 150 liters on one side, and then the freezer is 50 liters. This is a slide-out pantry. All of our dry goods and spices. Cafe Bustelo, it's in Miami. It's Cuban coffee, instant coffee. Sometimes I don't even heat it up. I just throw throw some in my mouth, take a sip of water. We have uppers, which all of my uppers are built out of 80/20 aluminum as well, just like the drawer down there. And I used rivet nuts to drill them through the support beams on the car, on the vehicle, on the roof. Vera Custom Woodworking, they did all of my trim pieces. They did the countertop for me. They built basically the galley and all the backsplash. So we have a diesel-powered cooktop. When this is on full blast, it uses 0.3 amps, less than half an amp to heat our food. And this thing gets crazy hot. It gets like 600 degrees. We also have a 120 volt oven down here, and it's pretty big. I mean, you could put like a whole turkey in here. It goes like 18 inches into the back there. So one of the main reasons we went with a diesel-powered cooktop versus an induction one is because we have the oven as well, and you can't use both at the same time on a 3,000 watt inverter. So moving on into the shower. The shower is built out of just 2x4s and plywood, and then I put red guard on all the plywood, and then FRP board, and then on top of that I just did these stick-on tiles. We have the Nautilus sliding shower door, and the shower system is probably one of the coolest things in the van. I built a recirculating shower. So we have a 1 gallon tank underneath the van. It has a few drain holes in it. One of the holes goes back up through the pump, and then it goes through a series of filters, a sediment filter, a carbon filter, and a UV light. And then it goes through one of the heat exchangers powered by the Rixon's system. So we have essentially unlimited clean hot water. The water's cleaner than just showering in a house versus tap water. And again, just 1 gallon of water. And then when we're done, I flip a switch, it back flushes the entire system, cleans out the filters, drains it into my other gray water tank, and then I can pump a new fresh gallon over for my main 50-gallon water tank, ready for the next shower. We also have the 5-gallon Thetford porta potty, cassette toilet, and then just a diaper pail, which doubles as a garbage for us. So this is the only switch I have in the entire van. Everything else is controlled by these S-Pods. It's essentially a Bluetooth relay system, and they're all ran in parallel, so I can control anything in the van from any one of the 3 screens that I have scattered through, or from my phone with the app. And I can scroll through, turn on things like my ball valves for the tanks. I can turn on and off lights, my cooktop. I have a Wii Boost on here. So it's a pretty cool system just to have everything built in one. So all the finishing, which I mean really makes, I outsourced that. I don't know if you heard that part. It was a shop down in Florida. They did all of my door faces, everything, and then all the trim work, backsplash. They did the countertop. They built the galley for me, and then the closet and closet door, and then everything else you see, I did by myself.
Specific for vans, or were they?
No, they had done a van before. I don't know if you've seen them. Our Van Quest. They moved into a bus recently, but they did some work with them, which was their first van that they had ever done, and I just like what they did. It was close to me, so. For the water system here, we have a reverse osmosis 7-stage drinking system. It realkalines the water, and then it goes through a UV light just before it comes over here. We have just a standard sink nozzle, and then I like to cook, so I have shooting knives, and I went ahead and got a shooting cutting board as well. That fits in here just for extra counter space. So this is our closet, well, my wife's closet, and then this is my closet down here. I don't know if it's worth showing this because you're probably not gonna be able to see it, but this is all like the intricate plumbing with the heating system as well. And then I have like the air ducts for the heat, plumbing for the entire van. I have my filters on a slide so I can swap them out every couple months. The heat exchangers are in there, a couple pumps, one for the glycol, one for the water itself. I have a coolant reservoir in here, and hot air heat exchanger comes from down here as well. And then I just have these flexible dryer vents to be able to open the door. So I went with the Nomadic Cooling 12 volt AC for the obvious reason that it's a 12 volt. You don't have to have any generators running. It uses between 40 and like 70 amps, depending on how hot it is outside. If it's running on 100% duty cycle, for us, for example, we have 400 amps, so we could easily make it through an entire night with the AC blasting. It makes a huge difference in the back, but in the heat where we are here, Phoenix and in Miami, it really only cools the back of the van, but it, I mean, still makes a big difference. It's also a pretty low profile AC unit on the top. These vans are already so tall that you want to limit how much stuff you add on the roof. It's a single unit instead of a split unit, so it's a pretty easy install. It just fits in this standard 14 by 14 hole. The flush mount is pretty nice as well. We don't hit our head on anything coming out of bed. Where we have the baby's bed, it's cool because we can angle one of the vents to him, and then we can put the rest of them on us or towards the front of the van. So I'm 5'9.5", maybe 5'10". So I have kind of built-in flares, so that way we didn't fill up any of the precious headroom space. With my windowsills, I actually put my head on the windowsill back here and then my feet in the windowsill in the back just to get enough room. All right, so up here I have a camera system. We have 4 cameras, 2 underneath the van and then 2 on the outside. The ones underneath are pointed backwards at each axle, so if we're doing any off-roading, we can see tire placement. And those are infrared and motion censored as well. And this I can actually take off, and I have a power system in the back where I can plug this, so in the middle of the night, if we see any movement outside, we can see what's going on. I also did this headliner shelf. I just bought the brackets on Amazon and then cut this here, just carpeted it. And then we have all of our window covers up here. They're all on magnets and they're built for 4 seasons. The brand is thisvanlife.net. The S-Pod system that I was showing you inside, I can control from my phone as well. So any lights or my compressor, I can turn on from outside of the vehicle. Any ball valves from draining water, I can do that out here as well. Here we have 2 Baja Design LP9s and 2 of their squadrons up here. At Nomadic Cooling, we're going to be adding the CA-tuned off-road bumper with the Warren Xeon 12S Platinum. I also have a compressor on board, so if we do any off-roading and I air down my tires, I can air them back up. So when I started the build, I started with 2 of these fantastic fans, and even opening a window and having airflow, it just wasn't cutting it in the Miami heat. So I upgraded to the AC system, and sometimes now we use this one if we want to ventilate the van while we're cooking, bring in air or get a little breeze if it's nice and cool outside. So back here in the garage space, we just use tote bins, and we just pile them up in here for all of our clothes and tools and stuff. I had custom water tanks made. This is a 50-gallon tank. It's made out of aluminum, cut and welded, and all of the fittings that I wanted in specific locations. I have a quick disconnect to fill up my water. I have a visual gauge out here to see how high the water is going from back here, and then all of my tanks are on senders. So on my screen up there, the Victron screen, I can see the tank levels as well. Back there you can see the 7-stage filtration system with a 4-gallon filtered reservoir. For the electrical system, starting from left to right, right now I have 4 100 amp hour Battleborn batteries, which here at Nomadic Cooling I'm going to be upgrading those to 5 200 amp Victron batteries. And I have a master on-off for the entire system. I have the inverter on-off. This is a 400 amp T-class fuse. These fuses are kind of hard to find, so I put a backup one right here. This is a low voltage disconnect for my DC distribution box. I have breakers for all of the bigger units, one for the Nomadic Cooling AC, one for the 12 volt distribution, one for my solar, and one for the alternator charger. This is my 12 volt distribution. This is one of my solar chargers, the battery shunt. The batteries are ran in parallel, so it's 400 amps of 12 volt. This is a 3000 watt Victron inverter with 2400 watt constant. And then on the other side of it, I have my 120 volt distribution with breakers going throughout the entire van. The two 12 volt distributions down there, those are the other 2 S-Pods that I have. That's the second of 3 solar chargers, and the third one is up in the front, the passenger seat. Can't see it from here, but above that solar charger is my Serbo GX. With the Serbo GX, one of the features is you can hook up a generator, or in my case, you can hook it up to the mid-city engineering system for an auto start. So it's all configurable in your settings, but I have mine set up where when my batteries get down to 25%, it sends a trigger through a relay to auto start the van. And then with my buck boost DC to DC charger, it sends about 100 amps back to these batteries. I have it set to shut off at about 40%. So then the van shuts off on its own. So in the middle of the night, if the AC is drawing too much power, or if the batteries get too low, or if you're away from the van for a while, you're not going to come back to damaged dead batteries. So another cool feature about the Serbo GX is I have it connected to my mobile Wi-Fi hotspot, and I can see any tank levels, temperatures, or battery levels from my phone from anywhere in the world. Passenger seat here, I put an auxiliary AGM battery with a smart isolator on it. So when the batteries, it's ran in parallel to the starter battery. When the batteries get down to, I believe, 12.6 volts, they separate, and anything that I have running off of the system here will only run from the auxiliary battery. I have a push button booster switch on the side of the seat, and when I press that, it links the batteries together. I can essentially jumpstart myself off this second battery. I also have one of 3 S-Pod Bantams in this section here, and then I also have a 250 watt Victron inverter, which is a backup for us. Underneath the van, we upgraded the fuel tank to a 49-gallon tank. It's from Agile Off-Road. Fully weighted, we get about 700 to 750 miles to the tank. I don't like letting it go too low. I don't know how accurate the gauge is on it since it's not a factory one. The range is off on it, so the range doesn't update, so it tells me my range is like 350 when I have a full tank, but it takes twice as long to go down. And so on the roof, we have a 360 watt Solaria residential panel, and then in the front here I have a 90 watt Zamp solar panel. We have a WeBoost in here as well, and I have the antenna on a electrical folding bracket, so from inside the van we can pick the antenna up or lower it.